Hey, maybe I can cheese the level this way. And I'm stuck. The Famicom, or the Japanese Nintendo Entertainment System, if anyone's unaware, I'm sure everyone's aware of that at this point, is a platform that just has so many games. While the NES's library was in the 700 range, the Famicom library has over 1,000 games. And that's not even counting the seemingly endless supply of bootlegs and multi-carts that are all over the place. With that, you see a ton of things that really wouldn't appeal to most American audiences, with the huge array of mahjong titles, pachinko, stuff like that. I could go on and on about what US audiences would generally not gravitate towards. But what about the games that are actually really well done that we just didn't get? As someone who's been a fan and collector of the Famicom, I've definitely come across some gems, and I'd love to use this platform to talk about some of them. And I definitely will down the road. But one step at a time. This episode we're going to take a look at a game called Perman. Perman was a game released on the Famicom in 1990 by IREM, who made some classic titles such as Kung Fu and R-Type. It's based on a manga and anime about a clumsy boy who's selected to become a superhero or something. The series dates back to the 60s even. But there was a series of it in the mid-80s, which is probably what this game was based on. I don't know anything about the series, but I did a little bit of research, so hopefully I don't come across as unknowledgeable to a fan of the series if they happen to come across this video. Because this game is great. This game is a side-scrolling platformer, aka my favorite kind of game. You play as, I guess, Perman. Forgive me, I'm not very up to date with the obscure manga. Perman looks kind of like Snap from Chalk Zone. Now that was a good show. You're equipped with a punching attack that sends enemies flying. It rules. You can also power it up to be stronger and more wide range. The stages are pretty standard and look about what you would expect a game from this time to look like. The stages are pretty short, and they have these weird mini-games that for the most part I don't really understand. At the end of each level is a boss fight, which is probably the biggest flaw of the game. It's a pure RNG board game where you have to either damage your opponent more than they damage you, or make it to the end of the board game before they do. Whichever happens first. It's almost as bad as that terrible mini-game that happens after every stage in Yo Noid, where you have to pick up cards and eat pizza. But it's not as bad as that, at least. Thankfully, the early ones are pretty easy, like this karate guy with long hair, but it gets more difficult. Stage 2 has you in this town with walking pants? I'm sure this has some sort of relevancy to the series, but it's super weird. And there's this weird red guy who keeps jumping at you. You can collect these peas that look kind of like a Pory to me. Maybe I just always have the greatest Pokemon of all time on the mind. This stage is pretty much like the last one. It's just really short, and you can honestly clear these stages in minutes. Actually, this game would be really neat to speedrun if it weren't for the boss fights. The second boss is an invisible guy who's dressed like a detective, and he's smoking. I guess he needs my Stop Smoking coach for the Nintendo DS. The third level is a bit different. You play as a different hero, another Perman. Upon looking into it, he's Perman number 2, and his name is Booby. Yeah, his name's Booby. Booby the Perman. He's actually a monkey and not a man. Instead of a linear side-scroller, this one's more of a vertical point of view. You escalate through the trees and avoid ninjas. You even get this silly minigame where you have to figure out the differences between pictures. At least this one I can figure out. Levels like this are always kind of a pain due to one wrong move resulting you in falling down and having to redo all the parts you just did, but it's not bad. Once you get into the clouds it gets really tricky, and thus far I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm sure Booby is too. The boss battle is the same as the other one, as you would have guessed, RNG board game. Your opponent looks kind of like if Sonic the Hedgehog was wearing a pink ninja outfit. But once Booby defeats him, you move on to the next stage. You know, if these guys can be superheroes, then darn it, so can I. These levels are way too tedious for Pory, but maybe Poor Man can get through them. I couldn't find or make a cool superhero costume in time for this, so what you see is what you get, but just trust me, I'm Poor Man now. Make no mistake though, the boss fights, while I'm not a fan of them by any means, definitely don't ruin the game. Stage 4 is the typical icy stage. Every cool platform needs one of those. One thing that sticks out with this one is that the music is fantastic. This game's definitely gotten more challenging as I went on, but it was a fair and warranted sort of deal, which is just what I needed. After you get past the main part, you become a snowball temporarily and get to a part full of snowmen, which are actually apes or something. Or maybe they're supposed to be yetis because it's an ice level? I don't know. I'm sure it has some sort of relevancy to the show, like I've been saying, but I don't know. You then get to this part where you have to shoot out blocks strategically to get to the top of the stage. It's a bit tricky, but at least if you mess it up, you can redo it without dying. After you get to this weird side-scrolling segment, where you have to get to the end in sort of a spiral pattern, I don't know how to really explain it, but it's cool. You play this weird whack-a-mole game if you want, and I assume you have to hit the bad guys, but if you hit the heroes, which I ended up doing because I'm bad at this kind of thing, you lose the minigame. Finish the level by trying to win at the board game a few times with a giant yeti and move on to stage 5. Yeah, another board game. In stage 5, you play as Booby again, on a pirate ship fighting these pirates. As you get on the ship, you get to this weird conveyor belt part. That's kinda tricky, but Booby can handle it. There's not much to be said about it besides the conveyor belts make it tricky, but that's really all I have to say about this level. You end with the board game with a weird buck-toothed sailor guy. Luckily, after a few tries, Booby beats him and you go on to the next level. Stage 6 takes place in a factory-like setting where you have to break through blocks to progress. You avoid lava and cranes and stuff like that, and you eventually reach these weird rock faces on the floor and ceiling that shoot rocks at you. Now what's up with that weird blue guy? I even broke the game at one point in the stage by going where I shouldn't have, but thankfully resetting the game resumed me on this stage. After that part is more traversing through the rocks, avoiding sliding ones that crush you. It's a short part, but it gets kinda tricky. You finish the level with a board game, oh boy, with a weird looking gold guy. I swear, these enemies are definitely relevant to the series, I just don't know anything about it, having never seen an episode or reading the manga ever. But I just think they look silly at this point. After that is the final stage, and it's a boss stage where you actually get to fight the boss? What? This battle is a little tough, and the hit detection's kind of iffy at times, but I would have liked it a lot more if all the boss fights were like this, or at least along the lines of this. After you hit him a few times, he falls out of his spaceship and says something to you that I can't read, because I can't read Japanese. Then you steal his spaceship and you get congratulated by Superman. Yeah, I'm not joking. In the series, that guy's name is Superman. Or at least it was in the beginning until they changed it to Birdman due to the obvious lawsuit that would have happened. But Birdman existed at the time of this series too. I have no idea, I'm thinking too far into it. So if Superman says stuff to you that I obviously can't read, as well as my fellow Perman. Perman? Yeah, Perman. Even good old Booby says something to you. After that, the game ends with a scene of Perman and Superman in space waving at you. Oh, Perman, Superman, okay. I get it. So, Perman, for the Famicom, it's definitely a game I would consider a hidden gem. As among many others on the system. It's a simple and moderately short platformer, but the game sells for like $5 these days. Don't blame me if the price is getting inflated, by the way. And for that, it's more than worth it. The boss fights are a little iffy, but the levels are really well done, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a great time for a simple pick up and play experience. But wait, there's more. They also made Perman Part 2 on the Famicom. Let's check it out. Perman Part 2 was released a year later, also by Irem. This one actually lets you choose between the 3 Permen and the 1 per woman, which is kind of really awesome actually. You can choose between Mitsuo Suwa, the name of the original blue Perman who looks like Snap from Chalkstone, our pal Perman number 2, Booby, Perman number 3, Sumire Hoshino, who's also known as Per Girl in the US dubs, I guess, and Perman number 4, Hosen Omaya. Please forgive me, because I probably butchered the pronunciation of their names really badly. Sorry. You begin in stage 1, in a city setting with these creepy detectives and this guy climbing on the side of the building. Is that Durman? I don't know. Upon entry into the building, the game becomes a top-down perspective, which is a nice change. There's also bonus stages in here as well, and it's pretty much just break the boxes to get power-ups. You have to explore in this building in a maze-like setting, avoiding robots. After exiting the building, you go back to the side-scrolling setting, and a neat addition to the game is the ability for the Perman characters to fly, which adds a lot more depth to the experience. There's more top-down exploration in this level, and then you get to the boss of this stage. And I'm very pleased to say that they don't have those stupid board games anymore. They're not jaw-dropping battles or anything, but at least you can help if you win them. The first one is just a weird guy in a suit hopping around. Shoot him a handful of times and then he becomes a monkey. But that's not even his final form. Shoot him more and he becomes a teapot. I swear this has to have some sort of relevance to the series. It has to. After teapot form, you beat the boss and you get to go to stage 2. In between each stage, you can also change characters, which is pretty cool. Stage 2 isn't a factory, baby. It's hard to tell in these 8-bit games sometimes, but you get to use your imagination. There's more robots, and the flying mechanic also plays a larger role in this stage. You just go through wherever it is you are, and you just keep going down deeper and deeper. The levels are still short, but not to the extent of Part 1's level lengths. You battle up. I think it's a crash test dummy? I'm just guessing, honestly. He throws stuff at you, but he takes significantly less hits than the monkey/teapot. Level 3 takes place at the beach? Yeah, again, it's just really tough to determine where some of these locations are without any knowledge of the series, which I have a very minimal amount of. So I'm just guessing. I should watch this series after I'm done with this review and yell at myself about how badly I interpreted this game. This stage is a little more difficult than the others, rightfully so. There's spikes all over the place and enemies just all up in your face. But even with that, it's still kind of a cakewalk. The boss of this is a weird eye thing that you need to use your flying abilities to kill. It's a little bit frustrating, but it's a unique boss battle to throw into the mix, which is nice. It's pretty easy to kill anyway, it only takes a few hits. Stage 4 starts you in the top-down perspective with skeletons and spiders. I'm super spooked. The different perspectives being primarily used is really nice, and it breaks up the gameplay enough to keep it fresh from the primarily side-scrolling levels, which I had no problem with, but it's nice to add new things. The level's a bit longer than the others, but it ends in a boss fight with the same perspective, fighting a sea monster. This is probably my favorite boss fight in the game. Stage 5 continues the top-down style. This one has a lot of tough jumps, since platforming this style wasn't quite there yet at the time, but it still manages to work it pretty well. And this level definitely gets a little tough. The end boss is a robot spider, maybe? I like that every boss in this game somehow brings something unique to the table as opposed to being carbon copies of one another. After that, it's the final stage. It's a short game, and this one's actually a lot more speedrunnable. Able to be speedrun? I don't know. Than the first one, because there's no RNG battles in between each level. It begins with you flying to the other side and shooting enemies in the sky. The music for this part of the level is really great, too. After flying through, you temporarily go inside, kill some robots, make it to the bottom. Then back outside you go. I really like these outside segments of the stage due to the flying playing a huge role in it. After that part is the final boss, which is just a guy in a costume shooting at you. He's actually pretty tough, but after a few tries I finally took him down and beat the game. At the end you're treated to the heroes flying away and a news report of a guy saying something, who knows what. Then Superman, or Birdman, whatever you want to call him, says something to you that I can't read, and you're greeted with the end screen. Perman 2 is a great game. I'd say it's slightly better than the first one, but you can't really go wrong with either of them. They're both on the easy side, and both games can be completed in under an hour. Well, maybe not this one because of those stupid boss fights, but considering how cheap they are, they're both very well worth it. I have a bunch of other Famicom games I'd like to make episodes on in the future. Would you be into that? Comment down below to let me know. Also comment down below if there's any Famicom gems you would recommend to me. Definitely let me know. And as always, like and sub if you dig it, and thank you a ton for watching. You have a great day. I'll see you later.